protesters are fast-moving.
Unlike other big rallies,
A bit earlier at about 7 a.m., a group from the Coast Guard.
Welcome to #PHVote 2013.
Today on Rappler, the anti-graft court prohibits Senators Juan Ponce Enrile, Bong Revilla, and Jinggoy Estrada from leaving the Philippines. Veteran lawyer Estelito Mendoza is Senator Enrile's counsel in his plunder case. And a crew member of the capsized Korean ferry pleads guilty to charges of criminal abandonment.
Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Anti-graft court Sandigan Bayan issues a whole departure order against Senators Juan Ponce Enrile, Bong Revilla, and their co-accused in the fund diversion case. This comes a day after the court prevented Senator Jinggoy Estrada, businesswoman Janet Napoles, and 12 others facing graft and plunder cases from leaving the Philippines. Napoles is accused of orchestrating the scam where lawmakers connived to funnel public money to fake nonprofit groups in exchange for a percentage. The Sandigan Bayan's First Division issued the order against Revilla and his 31 co-accused Tuesday morning. Hours later, the court's Third Division issues the order against Enrile and his co-accused, including his former Chief of Staff, Gigi Reyes. On June 13th, the Sandigan Bayan raffled the cases to 3 divisions, the start of what could be the biggest corruption trial in recent history. If the court rules that probable cause exists in these cases, warrants of arrest will be issued. Plunder is a non-bailable offense. Veteran lawyer Estelito Mendoza will be collaborating with the Ponce Enrile Reyes and Manalastas law firm to defend Senator Enrile in his plunder case. On Monday, Mendoza filed an entry of appearance before the Sandigan Bayan and requested all documents related to Enrile's case. Now 84 years old, Mendoza has been practicing law for the past 55 years. He served as counsel in various high-profile cases involving former presidents and alleged plunderers Joseph Estrada and Gloria Arroyo. Mendoza was also the Justice Secretary and Solicitor General under former President Ferdinand Marcos. He defended before the Supreme Court the 1973 Constitution that validated Marcos's reign, paving the way for 20 years of dictatorial rule. Enrile served alongside Mendoza during the Marcos administration. The children of Janet Napoles asked the Sandigan Bayan to dismiss the graft cases against them. But why were they included in the first place? Former Napoles employee turned whistleblower Merlina Suñas tagged Joe Christine and James Christopher Napoles in the siphoning of funds from the Department of Agrarian Reform, or DAR, in her affidavits. Suñas said the Napoles children were involved in the diversion of the Malampaya Fund worth 900 million pesos or $20.5 million US dollars. The special fund was intended to help farmers who lost their livelihoods in 2009 because of typhoons. The money supposedly ended up in Napoles' fake NGOs. Suñas also said the two were officers of their mother's JLN Corporation. Here's a Rappler exclusive. The Philippines may soon get compensation for the damage done by a U.S. naval ship on the TUBBATAHA reef last year. The USS Guardian destroyed more than 2,300 square meters of corals when it crashed into TUBBATAHA in January 2013. U.S. Ambassador Philip Goldberg did not disclose the amount the Philippines asked for, but earlier, the Philippine government pegged the cost of damage at 58 million pesos or about $1.3 million. Environmentalists demand a fine of up to 1.2 billion pesos or 27 million US dollars. Goldberg says the U.S. would, quote, continue to work closely with the government of the Philippines to resolve the issue of compensation for damage to the reef. The U.S. said it was prepared to provide compensation, but petitions filed before the Philippine Supreme Court led to delays in negotiations. The TUBBATAHA Reef's natural park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's considered the crown jewel of Philippine seas because of its rich marine life. Jordan's Prince Zayed Al Hussein is the next human rights chief of the United Nations. This makes him the first Muslim and Arab to hold the post. Zayed is currently Amman's ambassador to the UN. He will take over as UN High Commissioner for Human Rights on September 1, replacing Navi Pillay of South Africa. Zaid is steeped in peacekeeping and international justice. He played a key role in the establishment of the International Criminal Court. For more than 2 years, he chaired complex negotiations on genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. He was also Jordan's ambassador to the United States and Mexico. The United States moves firepower into the Persian Gulf as Sunni militants continue their march across Iraq in a crisis that sparked international concern. The aircraft carrier George H.W. Bush, 5 other warships, and more than 500 Marines are on standby as Washington considers the use of airstrikes against the jihadist fighters. An indication of the gravity of the situation, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said he was open to cooperating with archfoe Iran to resolve the crisis. Iran is an ally of Iraq's Shiite-led government, while militants, the terrorists of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, are Sunni. U.S. and Iraqi officials confirmed they had a brief discussion on the sidelines of nuclear talks in Vienna, but both said military cooperation was not on the agenda. The group drew international condemnation after photos surfaced of massacred Iraqi soldiers, alleged Iraqi soldiers. CNN analyst Charles Lister said ISIS is a formidable, fanatical force bent on rapid results. He noted the jihadists quickly gained recruits, cash, and weapons, but he said the group has a weakness. The uprising is made up of an unstable alliance with Sunni groups, which may fail in the long term because of their brutality. U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines Philip Goldberg says Iraq is now the focal point for the transnational jihadist movement. He also noted that terrorists, extremists have been crossing borders to join in the fight. Last Friday, Malaysian police arrested 3 men whom they said were planning to fight for ISIS in Iraq and Syria and had links to Abu Sayyaf in the Philippines. Malaysian police say 15 members of the group have been arrested since April 28. Goldberg says that although the senior leadership of Al-Qaeda is weakened, similar groups have sprung up, including ISIS in Iraq and Boko Haram in Nigeria.
There are jihadists from all over the world who want to get there and want to join this battle, which is a very, very troubling sign. What you have is a senior leadership that has been very weakened, but still these nodes that have developed of Al-Qaeda groups or like groups that are still very active and very much of concern. And that's why so much of the world is today focused on Iraq, and why this has been a very troubling moment as ISIS, which went up into Syria to fight jihad there, are returning to Iraq, to their roots, with many foreign fighters in tow, including those who may be there from East Asia or other places in the world.
The advance of Sunni militants into Iraq comes just 3 years after U.S. troops withdrew from Iraq. Could this be Afghanistan all over again? I mean, is it back to the future?
Well, Iraq already is and already had a conflict, and there was hope at the end of the conflict, and when we withdrew, that it would be able to be sustained. I think there are a lot of people who are very disappointed in the Maliki government and the way it has handled the various sectarian issues. And there clearly is a problem in Iraq that goes beyond ISIS.
As ambassador to the Philippines, Goldberg pushed for stronger ties between the Philippines and the United States, especially after Typhoon Haiyan last year. In April, the Philippines and the U.S. signed a defense deal that gives the U.S. more access to Philippine bases and allows them to store equipment. The Philippines Armed Forces Chief wants the U.S. to use bases that face the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea, site of the tense territorial disputes between the Philippines and China. Goldberg says the U.S. has not yet identified the bases it prefers to use, adding the two countries will have to reach mutual agreement on the locations. Goldberg says the bases should help the Philippines build up its defense and boost the United States' presence with allies in the region.
Let's go back to the basics.
Okay.
EDCA is designed to do 2 things. One is to help the Philippines as it builds a minimum credible defense. And that includes maritime issues, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief. Then the other part is the rebalance.
Correct.
Which means that the United States will be more present. We'll be able to help the Philippines and ourselves in pre-positioning and being ready for that next typhoon or other disaster. But to be more present in the region as a demonstration that this is the Asian Pacific century, and that the rebalance is part of it. And part of that, as I mentioned before, is the renewal of alliances, of which the Philippines is one.
From Twitter, Cholo Talaba, U.S. and the Philippines. The Pakistani Taliban warned foreign firms on Monday to leave the country. It's also vowed to hit back after government tanks, troops, and jets were deployed in a long-awaited offensive. Pakistan's major cities braced for revenge attacks by tightening security at key installations and ordering soldiers to patrol the streets. The offensive against the main bastion of Taliban and Al-Qaeda militants was launched a week after an attack on the country's main airport in Karachi. Pakistan's allies, like the United States, called for an operation to flush out the groups. The trial of 15 crew members from South Korea's ferry disaster resumes Tuesday. The defense team warns against making defendants the sole scapegoats for a national tragedy. One defendant, the ferry's first engineer, admits to charges of criminal abandonment. The crew escaped the sinking vessel while hundreds of passengers remained trapped, earning the country's condemnation. Identified by his surname Son, the engineer, through his lawyer, says he will not be making excuses. Son's lawyer requested leniency for his client, citing Son's poor health. Son attempted suicide once. The other 14 defendants denied all charges, including Captain Lee Jun-suk and senior crew members accused of, quote, homicide through willful negligence. That carries the death penalty. A nationwide manhunt is ongoing for Yoo Byung-yoon, patriarch of the family behind Chung Hai-jin Marine Company, the company behind the Sewol ferry. The Sewol was carrying 476 passengers, including 325 students on a school trip, when it sank off the southwest coast on April 16th. So far, 292 have been confirmed dead, with 12 still missing. Myanmar opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi accused her country's election commission of bias. The former political prisoner turned politician has been campaigning to amend a military-drafted constitution, barring her from becoming president. The 2008 constitution blocks anyone whose spouse or children are overseas citizens from leading the country, a clause believed to be meant specifically for Suu Kyi, whose late husband and 2 sons are British. But Myanmar's top election body last month warned her against using language that, quote, challenges the army during her rallies. The 68-year-old Suu Kyi was released after 2 decades of house arrest in 2010. A quasi-civilian government led by former General Thein Sein has since pushed reforms, overturning Myanmar's impoverished status. Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 7, one of Africa's last great tusker elephants, a 50-year-old elephant named SATAO, was shot dead by poachers in Kenya. Kenyan-based NGO Savo Trust said poachers used poisoned arrows to shoot SATAO before cutting off its face and stealing the tusks. SATAO was famous for its giant tusks that touched the ground and weighed more than 100 pounds. Nearly 100 elephants have been killed this year by poachers, but wildlife conservationists believe the number is much higher. At number 9, UK transport experts unveil a digital platform that maps people's emotions while they take different types of public transport in real time. The Sentiment Mapping Project aims to improve the commuter experience by letting transport operators understand the needs of their passengers and allow them to respond better to emergencies. Still in its infancy, the team launched a live tool visualization of passenger sentiment based on Twitter, covering the area between London and Milton Keynes. And at number 10, Britain's Prince George can now stand on his 2 feet. 2 months shy of his first birthday, the little royal showed the public he can walk. It's the first time Prince George has been photographed walking during a charity polo match Sunday. The young prince turns 1 on July 22. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Check out Rappler's Project Agos microsite. It's a one-stop shop for educating the public on how to prepare better for disasters. Project Agos aims to raise awareness on climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction and management. It can help people better prepare, respond, and aid in recovery. Visit www.rappler.com/Project Agos. Every story on Rappler has its own mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. You click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page. That crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our viewers and our readers the most emotionally. If you take a look, these 10 stories have gotten the most number of votes on their mood meter. We see today, top story today, the court prohibits Jinggoy, 13 others from leaving. You have, interestingly, 5% amused, 85% happy. We have the anti-graft court issues a whole departure order against Bong Revilla and Enrile, 59% sad and 41% happy. That's interesting. This story again is about Bong Revilla visits vote-rich barangays ahead of his arrest, 23% angry, 50% annoyed. That purple, bringing out the mood of the day and the mood of the story that's gotten the most number of votes today. Most people are annoyed. Well, that is Rappler's Newscast for today, Tuesday, June 17, 2014. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.